It wasn't the texts that broke me. It was watching him act like another woman's comfort blanket right in front of me. Hey friends, please like this video and leave a comment with your impressions. This will be a great help. Thank you. We never tire of reminding you, it's all thanks to you. I'm 23 and I've been with my boyfriend Jake since we were teenagers. 5 years. The kind of relationship where your families know each other, your routines are built together, and you start picturing the next steps like they're already scheduled. We're not married yet, but in my head, Jake was my person. Solid, safe, the guy who'd never embarrass me and definitely never blur lines with another woman. Jake is 25 now, and he's been at his job for a few years. It's one of those workplaces where everyone jokes around, where people spend long shifts together and create their own little culture. I never really questioned it because he always said his coworkers were older, and the way he described it made it sound like a bunch of people in their 30s and 40s who treat him like the young guy on the team. There was one coworker he mentioned more than others. We'll call her Amy. At first, Amy sounded like an inconvenience, not a threat. Jake would say things like, "Amy's car is acting up again," or "Amy can't figure out how to fix that thing in her house." And because Jake is that guy who's good with his hands and likes feeling useful, he'd go help. He'd stop by her place, look at her car, fix a latch, whatever. I didn't love the idea of my boyfriend going to a coworker's house, but I didn't want to be controlling. Jake had never given me a reason not to trust him. And again, older coworkers. That detail made it easy to shrug off. In my head, Amy was probably some 40-year-old single mom with a messy garage and a broken doorknob. Then one night happened that flipped something in me. Jake fell asleep early and his phone started blowing up, over and over, calls, buzzing, like someone was panicking. I thought maybe it was an emergency, so I picked up his phone. It was one of his guy friends calling repeatedly. I answered quietly and told him, "Jake's asleep, and so am I, please stop calling unless something is seriously wrong." The friend mumbled something like, "Oh, okay," and hung up. Before I put the phone down, I noticed there were a bunch of unread text notifications. 5 of them were from Amy. I wasn't trying to snoop. I didn't even unlock the phone. The notifications were just right there on the screen. One of them punched me in the stomach. "Great Jake, now everyone thinks we are fucking," face with tears of joy. I sat there in the dark, holding his phone like it was something dirty. I remember staring at that message and waiting for my brain to find a reasonable explanation. Like maybe she meant they were doing something else. Like maybe it was some inside joke about being late, or a rumor, or office drama. But even if it was a joke, why would she send that to my boyfriend? And why would my boyfriend be the person she felt comfortable making that joke with? I put the phone down and tried to sleep. I couldn't. My chest felt tight, and my mind kept replaying that sentence with the laughing emoji at the end like it was supposed to be cute. The next day, Jake came home from work, kissed me like normal, and started talking about his day. I waited until he'd put his stuff down. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just said, "Hey, can we talk about something?" He looked at me and said, "Yeah, what's up?" I told him what I saw. I repeated the message exactly. I watched his face while I did. Jake didn't look shocked. He didn't look angry. He looked mildly annoyed that it was a topic. He said, "It's nothing. We were both late this morning, and people at work were making jokes. Amy just said that because everyone was assuming stuff." I asked, why would they assume that? He shrugged. "People talk. It's a workplace." I said, "Okay, but why would she text you that? Why is she joking about you sleeping with her?" Jake sighed like I was being dramatic. "It's just Amy. She jokes like that. It was a joke." A joke? I told him that's really unprofessional, and honestly it makes me uncomfortable. Jake rubbed his eyes and said, "Fine, come out with us tonight. We're going to a bar after work. Meet everyone, meet Amy, then you'll see it's nothing." Part of me was relieved he invited me. That's what an innocent boyfriend does, right? He doesn't hide, he introduces, he lets you see the dynamic. So I agreed. And I wish I hadn't. We got to the bar, and I instantly realized Jake hadn't been honest with me in one important way. His coworkers were a lot older. Some were older, sure, but there were plenty around our age. And then I saw Amy. Amy was not a 40-year-old with a broken doorknob. Amy was 28, 3 years older than Jake, pretty, confident, the kind of pretty that makes you feel like you need to check if you have spinach in your teeth. She had that effortless vibe like she knew the room would pay attention. When Jake walked in, Amy lit up. Not a polite smile, not a normal coworker nod. She rushed him like he was her person. Jake, she squealed, and before I even fully reached the table, she was touching him, hands on his arm, leaning into him, laughing too hard at things he wasn't even saying yet. Jake didn't move away, he didn't create space, he just accepted it like it was normal. I stood there, holding my purse strap, feeling like I'd walked into the middle of a show that had been running for seasons, and I was the new character nobody asked for. Jake finally turned and said, "Amy, this is my girlfriend." Amy looked at me and smiled wide, like she was thrilled. "Oh my God," she said, and she grabbed my hand like we were about to bond. "Finally, I've heard so much about you." I forced a smile. "Nice to meet you." She kept holding my hand too long, and then she said, "Don't worry, I love him like a brother." Like a brother. I've heard people say that before, but the way she said it felt like a line she'd practiced, like she knew it was the phrase that made girlfriends back off. The night went on, and it didn't get better. It got worse in 100 little moments. Amy kept finding excuses to touch Jake. She leaned on him while talking. She nudged him with her shoulder. At one point, she took his arm and literally tucked it around her like it belonged there. Jake let her. Then she kissed him on the cheek. Not a quick bye peck, not a family-style air kiss, a cheek kiss that lingered just long enough to make a point. I watched Jake's face. I waited for him to look uncomfortable, to laugh awkwardly, to step back, to say, "Hey, chill." He did none of that. He smiled like it was normal. I felt my stomach drop. I wanted to disappear, but I also wanted to stand up and say, "Are you kidding me?" But I didn't want to be the girlfriend who caused a scene in front of his coworkers. I didn't want to give them a show. So I sat there, quiet, trying to read what was happening like it was a language I didn't speak. Amy started telling stories, loud ones, oversharing ones, the kind of stories people tell to see who blushes. She said casually that she'd had sex with half their coworkers. I nearly choked on my drink. Then she laughed and said she got the next morning off because she'd sent one of the guys nudes so he would cover her shift. She said this like it was a funny work hack, like she'd told the story 100 times. Some people at the table laughed uncomfortably. A few looked away, but Jake just sat there like he'd heard it before, like this was normal Amy behavior. And the fact that he was so used to it, that was the part that made me feel sick. At one point, Amy turned to me again and said, "Honestly, you're lucky. He's such a good guy. He fixes my car, he fixes stuff at my house. He's the only one who actually shows up for me." She said it with a smile that looked innocent, but it felt like a claim. I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "Yeah, he's helpful." Amy laughed. "Helpful is an understatement. He's like a husband." Then she looked at Jake and said, "Right, work husband." The word husband hit me like a slap. Jake smiled. He didn't correct it. A few minutes later, Amy got up to go to the bathroom, came back, and suddenly her whole mood shifted. She started crying. Not sniffly emotional, full sobbing, tears running down her face, shoulders shaking. Everyone at the table got quiet. People did that awkward thing where they look anywhere except at the crying person. Amy choked out that she was lonely, that she wanted someone to love her, that she was tired of being used by guys who only wanted one thing. And then she looked at Jake. Jake immediately stood up and went to her like it was automatic, like he'd done this before. He put his arm around her, he rubbed her back, he started talking to her softly, comforting her, telling her it was going to be okay. I sat there frozen. My boyfriend, comforting a woman who had just openly bragged about sending nudes to get her shift covered, who was all over him all night, who called him her work husband, who joked about people thinking they were sleeping together. And he was holding her like she was the fragile one. I remember looking around the table to see if anyone else thought this was insane. Some of them looked uncomfortable, some looked like they were pretending it wasn't happening. One girl gave me a sympathetic look, like she understood exactly what I was feeling, but wasn't going to step in. That was when I realized something. This dynamic wasn't new. This wasn't a one-night weird moment. This was their normal. And I was the outsider. We left the bar later, and I barely spoke on the drive home. My thoughts were too loud. Jake kept glancing at me like he knew I was upset but didn't know how to handle it. He finally said, "So, see, it's nothing." That sentence almost made me laugh, but it came out as a breath. "Nothing," I said. He sighed. "Olivia, you're quiet. You didn't even try to talk." "I did talk," I said. "I watched you let another woman hang on you all night. I watched her kiss you. I watched her call you her husband. I watched you comfort her like she was your girlfriend." Jake gripped the steering wheel. "She's just emotional." I said, "She's inappropriate." He shook his head. "You don't know her. That's how she is. Everyone knows that's how she is." And that was his defense. Not, "You're right, I should have stopped it." Not, "I didn't realize how it looked." It was, "Everyone knows, it's normal." I stared at him and said, "If everyone knows she's like that, why are you encouraging it?" He looked frustrated. "I'm not encouraging anything, I'm being nice." "Nice doesn't mean letting her put your arms around her," I said. "Nice doesn't mean letting her kiss you. Nice doesn't mean being her emotional support boyfriend at a bar while your actual girlfriend sits there." Jake said, "You're overreacting." That word snapped something in me, because I had spent the entire night underreacting just to keep the peace. When we got home, I didn't slam doors. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't threaten anything. I did something calmer. I said, "We need boundaries." Jake folded his arms. "What boundaries? She's my coworker." "I'm not asking you to quit your job," I said. "I'm not asking you to be rude. I'm asking you to stop acting like she's your second relationship." Jake rolled his eyes. "She's not." "Then it'll be easy," I said. I laid it out plainly. No drama, just reality. No more going to her house alone. If she needs something fixed, she can call a mechanic, a handyman, or ask one of the guys she sleeps with at work. No more physical contact that you wouldn't do with a male coworker. No cheek kisses, no lining, no arms around her. No more work husband jokes. If someone says it, correct it, even if it's awkward. And no more private emotional comfort. If she starts crying at work, he can say, "I'm sorry you're going through that," and then direct her to a friend, HR, a manager, or literally anyone else. He is not her boyfriend. Jake listened with his jaw tight, like he felt accused. He said, "You're trying to control me." I kept my voice low. "I'm telling you what I will and won't accept. That's not control. That's me protecting myself." He stared at me for a long moment, and then he said, "I'll talk to her." That sounded like a compromise, but it didn't feel like one. It felt like he was doing me a favor instead of doing the right thing. Over the next few days, I watched Jake closely, not in a paranoid way, in a reality check way. He didn't mention Amy. That made me uneasy, because if he truly talked to her, there would be something to report, even something simple like, "Hey, I told her to chill." Instead, there was nothing. Then I started noticing little things. He'd tilt his phone away sometimes, not like he was hiding an affair, but like he didn't want me seeing a specific name pop up. He'd come home and be in a mood, like he'd had an argument but didn't want to say with who. And one night, he finally admitted, "Amy thinks you hate her." I didn't even blink. Amy barely knows me. Jake sighed. "She said you were judging her." I said, "Jake, she told me she sent nudes to get a shift covered. What am I supposed to do? Applaud?" He got defensive. "She's going through stuff." That was the phrase again, the excuse, the softening. I said, "So am I. I'm going through watching my boyfriend prioritize a woman who disrespects our relationship." Jake didn't respond right away. He just stared at the floor like he was trying to find a way to make me the unreasonable one. That's when I realized the real problem was Amy. Amy was messy, inappropriate, and attention-hungry, but Amy didn't owe me loyalty. Jake did. If Jake had shut it down from the start, Amy would have either respected it or moved on to someone else. But Jake liked being needed. He liked being the good guy who fixes things, the steady one who listens, the safe shoulder to cry on. He was getting something out of it, and that's why he let it continue. A few nights later, I told Jake something very clearly. "I'm not competing," I said, I'm not going to sit in a bar again and watch you act like you're dating a coworker while telling me I'm overreacting. Jake tried to say, it's not like that. I said, I don't care what you call it. I care what it looks like, what it feels like, and what it does to our relationship. If you can't set boundaries, then you're choosing her comfort over mine. That finally got his attention. He asked, so what do you want me to do? And I said, I want you to act like a man in a relationship, a committed one, not a man who wants the benefits of being single at work and taken at home. That hit him hard enough that he got quiet. The next part is what I did that actually changed the situation. I didn't beg him to change. I didn't keep arguing the same point every night. I didn't keep chasing him for reassurance. I changed my posture. I told Jake, if you want to keep this relationship, these are the boundaries. If you don't, that's your choice. But I'm not staying in a relationship where my feelings get dismissed. Then I stopped talking about Amy. Not because it was fine, because I refused to be the one carrying the anxiety. I focused on my own stability. I started spending more time with my friends and family. I made plans without checking if Jake wanted to come. I made it clear that my world didn't revolve around waiting for him to choose me. That's when Jake started to feel the consequences. A week later, he came home and said, Amy tried to hug me today, and I stepped back. I didn't react emotionally. I just said, okay. He looked almost surprised I didn't praise him. He added she got mad. I said that's her problem. Jake sat down and said, she said I'm being different. I said, you are different. You're acting like you're in a relationship. Jake rubbed his face. She said, you're controlling me. I looked at him and said, do you believe that? He hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything I needed to know about how close he'd let her get in his head. I said, Jake, if a coworker can call your girlfriend controlling because you won't let her hang on you, then this wasn't just a joke. This was a dynamic you helped create. Jake was quiet for a long time. Then he finally said, I didn't realize how bad it looked until you were there. And for the first time, that sounded honest. He told me that at work, everyone teased them. Everyone called her his work wife. He laughed along because it felt harmless and because it made him feel important, like he was the guy Amy picked, the guy people noticed. I asked him, did you ever tell them to stop? He admitted no. I asked, did you ever tell Amy to stop? He admitted not really. And that's the moment I stopped blaming Amy in my head as the main villain and fully placed the responsibility where it belonged. I told Jake, this ends because you end it. No more errands at her house, not ever. If she needs help, she can hire help. No more private texting that isn't strictly about work. No flirty jokes, no sexual humor, no emoji laughing along with rumors. No more physical closeness, coworker distance. And if she cries and tries to turn him into her emotional caretaker, he needs to step out of it and redirect her to someone else. He's not her savior. Jake agreed, but I told him something else too. If this boundary costs you her friendship, then it wasn't a friendship. It was a relationship, and I'm not sharing you. The next day, Jake sent Amy a message while I was in the room. He didn't let me write it. He didn't show it off. He just handled it like a man who finally understood the stakes. He told her he was serious about me, and he needed things to be more professional. No more jokes about sleeping together. No more work wife. No more touching. No more personal favors. Amy did not take it well. She blew up his phone. She said he was being weird. She said I was insecure. She said she loved him like a brother, and I was making it gross. Jake didn't argue. He didn't explain. He didn't try to comfort her. He sent one final message. This is my boundary. Please respect it. Then he stopped responding. For a few weeks, things at his job were tense. Amy acted cold. She tried to make him feel guilty. She made comments in front of others like, oh, sorry, I forgot you can't talk to me anymore. Jake didn't bite. He came home exhausted some days, but I could tell he was starting to understand something he hadn't understood before. Setting boundaries feels uncomfortable when you've been enjoying the benefits of not having them. And I'll be honest, even with him finally doing the right thing, I didn't magically feel fine. Because I still had to process what I'd seen. I still had to sit with the fact that my boyfriend had allowed another woman to treat him like a partner for years and called it normal. So I did what I should have done earlier. I stopped trying to handle it only through feelings and started handling it through clarity. I told Jake we needed one serious conversation, no distractions, no phones, no defensiveness. I asked him straight up, "Why did you keep going to her house?" He said, "Because I didn't think it mattered. I was just helping." I asked if she was a man, would you go alone to his house to fix his car and hang out? He paused and admitted, probably not. I asked, so why her? Jake swallowed and said, because she asked, and I didn't want to be mean. That's when I said the line that finally put it in place. Kindness without boundaries is how people use you. Jake nodded like it stung because it was true. I told him, I'm not asking you to be rude. I'm asking you to be loyal in the small moments, the moments when I'm not watching, the moments where you decide what kind of man you are. Jake apologized properly after that. Not sorry you feel that way. Real apology. He admitted it was inappropriate, admitted he liked the attention, admitted he should have shut it down long ago. We're still together as I'm telling this story, but I won't pretend it was instantly fixed. Trust doesn't come back because someone says, I get it now. Trust comes back when someone changes behavior consistently, even when it costs them something. And if you're in my position right now, if you're reading this and thinking, they work together, so I can't ask him to cut her off, here's what I learned the hard way. You don't have to ask him to cut her off. You ask him to act like he's taken. You ask him to stop accepting flirtation as a joke. You ask him to stop playing hero for a coworker who knows exactly what she's doing. And if he refuses, then your real answer is not about Amy. It's about him. Because a man who values his relationship won't let you sit next to him while another woman climbs into his space and kisses his cheek and calls him her husband. He will protect the relationship without being asked twice. So yeah, I was devastated that night. But the devastation turned into something sharper, clarity. And clarity is what saved me from spending another 5 years pretending I was okay with being the real girlfriend while someone else played wife at work. If you've been through a work wife or work husband situation, tell me in the comments, did it stay harmless or did it reveal something bigger?